Resentment, a complex emotion woven from threads of disappointment, anger, and bitterness. It is a powerful force that can shape relationships, perceptions, and even one's own sense of self. It's a feeling that arises when one believes they've been wronged or treated unfairly, whether by an individual, a group, or even by circumstances beyond their control. Resentment can simmer quietly beneath the surface, slowly eroding trust and goodwill. Or it can erupt suddenly, spewing forth pent-up frustrations and grievances. At its core, resentment often stems from a sense of injustice or inequality. It arises when we perceive that others have received preferential treatment or advantages that we have been denied, whether in our personal lives, our careers, or society at large. This perception of unfairness can fester and grow over time, fueling feelings of resentment towards those we believe are responsible for our perceived plight. Welcome back to Student of the Brain, or if this is your first time visiting, welcome. My goal is to provide honest discussion on a range of topics related to psychology, the human brain, human behavior, and all things in between. Although I'm not a doctor, I try my best to provide accurate information, and I've provided references below. Please enjoy the vid, leave a comment, like, subscribe, and share. Let's get started. One common source of resentment is interpersonal relationships, where perceived slights or betrayals can sow the seeds of resentment between friends, family members, or romantic partners. For example, a friend who consistently cancels plans at the last minute, or a partner who fails to show appreciation for our efforts may trigger feelings of resentment as we feel undervalued or taken for granted. Similarly, unresolved conflicts or grievances can linger beneath the surface, poisoning the atmosphere and undermining trust and intimacy. Resentment can also arise in professional settings, where competition for resources, recognition, and advancement can breed envy and bitterness among colleagues. A co-worker who receives a promotion or praise that we believe we deserved may provoke feelings of resentment, leading to strained relationships and decreased morale in the workplace. Moreover, organizational policies or practices that we perceive as unjust or biased can fuel feelings of resentment towards management or the company as a whole, eroding employee loyalty and engagement. In some cases, resentment can become deeply ingrained in one's identity, shaping how they perceive themselves and their place in the world. For example, someone who has experienced repeated betrayals or injustices may come to see themselves as a perpetual victim, carrying a heavy burden of resentment towards those they believe have wronged them. This self-perpetuating cycle of resentment can be difficult to break, as it reinforces a narrative of victimhood and powerlessness. Resentment can have profound effects on both mental and physical health, leading to stress, anxiety, depression, and even chronic health conditions. The constant rumination on past grievances and perceived injustices can consume one's thoughts and energy, leaving little room for joy and fulfillment. Over time, this chronic state of resentment can take a toll on one's well-being, contributing to a downward spiral of negativity and despair. However, despite its negative consequences, resentment is also a natural and understandable response to perceived injustice. It can serve as a signal that something is amiss in our lives or our relationships, prompting us to take action to address the underlying issues. By acknowledging and examining our feelings of resentment, we can gain insight into our own needs and values and work towards resolving conflicts and restoring balance in our lives. Now let's discuss some common characteristics of resentful people. Refusal to forgive and move on. Resentful people refuse to forgive anyone. Although forgiving can be difficult, it can be described as the act of releasing resentment and releasing the desire for revenge towards someone who has wronged us. But let's understand that forgiveness does not mean condoning or excusing the actions of those who have hurt us, nor does it require us to reconcile with them or maintain a close relationship. Rather, forgiveness is a personal choice that we make for ourselves, as a way of reclaiming our power and refusing to be defined by the actions of others. It is about letting go of the past and embracing the present moment with an open heart and mind. Another trait of resentfulness is dichotomous thinking, also known as black and white thinking or all or nothing thinking. This is a cognitive pattern characterized by viewing the world in strict binary terms, where situations, people, or ideas are categorized into only two opposing categories without middle ground or nuance. This cognitive distortion often leads individuals to perceive things as either entirely good or entirely bad, with little room for complexity or shades of gray. The worst part is that resentful people don't even realize they think this way since it becomes so natural for them. Going to extremes is their way of handling everything. They tend to push everyone away because of this. Dichotomous thinking can contribute to negative emotions such as anxiety, depression, and anger as individuals become trapped in a cycle of rigid thinking and unrealistic expectations. Someone who views themselves as a constant victim may hold feelings of resentment and anger towards people who have wronged them, without acknowledging their own role in perpetuating the cycle of victimhood. Another trait of a resentful person is pride, often regarded as a fundamental aspect of human nature and is a complex emotion that manifests in various forms across cultures and contexts. At its core, pride is a deep sense of satisfaction or self-worth. Pride does have its empowering ways. It can also have negative consequences when taken to extremes. It can lead to stubbornness, defensiveness, and resistance to feedback or criticism as individuals become overly invested in maintaining a positive self-image and protecting their sense of pride. Resentful people are always on the defensive. They'll always find a way to get upset at you no matter what you do, which feeds their inability to forgive and forget, which feeds their resentment. Now, let's look at some ways on how to manage resentment. The first step in overcoming resentment is to acknowledge and validate the feelings that arise. Denying or suppressing resentment only allows it to fester and grow stronger. Instead, take the time to recognize and accept the emotions without judgment. Understand that it is natural to feel resentful in certain situations, but also recognize that holding on to these feelings indefinitely can be harmful to your well-being. Also, one must identify triggers and patterns. Take a closer look at the situation or individuals that trigger feelings of resentment within you. Is there a specific person, event, or circumstance that consistently brings up these emotions? By identifying the triggers and patterns associated with your resentment, you can gain insight into the underlying causes and begin to address them more effectively. Another coping mechanism is to practice empathy and perspective taking. Foster empathy towards yourself and others by trying to understand the motivations, perspectives, and experiences that may have contributed to the situation. Recognize that people are complex and multifaceted, and that their actions are often influenced by a variety of factors. By adopting a more empathetic mindset, you can cultivate greater understanding and compassion, which can help to soften feelings of resentment. You can also set boundaries and communicate effectively. Establish clear boundaries and communicate your needs and expectations assertively but respectfully. Oftentimes, resentment arises when our boundaries are violated or our needs are not being met. By expressing yourself openly and honestly, you can prevent misunderstandings and conflicts from escalating, thereby reducing the likelihood of resentment taking hold. One important step in dealing with resentment is to practice forgiveness. While forgiveness is not always easy, it can be a powerful tool for releasing resentment and reclaiming control over your emotions. Holding on to anger and resentment is like carrying around a heavy burden, weighing us down and preventing us from fully embracing life's joys and opportunities. By choosing to forgive, we release ourselves from this burden, allowing ourselves to let go of the pain and move forward with our renewed sense of freedom and inner peace. By forgiving those who have wronged you, you free yourself from the burden of resentment and open the door to healing, reconciliation, and can move on. You can also cultivate gratitude and positivity. Shift your focus from dwelling on the past grievances to cultivating gratitude and positivity in the present moment. By cultivating a more positive outlook, you can counteract feelings of resentment and cultivate a greater sense of contentment and fulfillment. In my opinion, this coping mechanism is probably the most important. You can seek support and professional help if needed. Don't hesitate to reach out for support from friends, family, or a mental health professional if you find yourself struggling to manage feelings of resentment on your own. Talking to someone you trust can provide validation, perspective, and encouragement, while therapy can offer valuable tools and strategies for coping with different emotions and navigating challenging situations. I want to emphasize that there's nothing positive about holding on to that burning hatred and anger for so long. And while resentment can be a powerful and overwhelming emotion, it doesn't have to control your life. By acknowledging your feelings, identifying triggers and patterns, practicing empathy and forgiveness, setting boundaries, cultivating gratitude and positivity, and seeking support when needed, you can learn to manage and mitigate the impact of resentment, reclaiming control of your thoughts, emotions, and behaviors in the process. Thanks for watching. If you enjoy these types of vids, like, subscribe, and share to help grow my channel. Stay strong and healthy. Much love.